industry. It was built in 1929. It proved vital to our war effort. The factory was turned over to producing Bren gun carriers, vans, army trucks and winches. It produced 34,000 Merlin aero engines and 95% of British tractors. Post-war employment at the plant peaked at some 40,000 workers in 1953. In 1959, it doubled its capacity, becoming the biggest factory in Europe. Unfortunately, vehicle assembly stopped in 2002, by which point nearly 11 million cars, trucks and tractors had been built in the plant. The decision was made to diversify into diesel technology. This was very much in line with government industrial and environmental strategy at the time. The Dagenham Diesel Centre, where the engines are both designed and manufactured, was opened by Tony Blair in 2003. Today, Dagenham produces 1 million engines annually, more than 50% of Ford's global diesel requirement. The engine plant and the diesel centre cover some 2.5 million square feet. We have nearly 1,800 engine plant employees, plus 650 in transport operations and another 600 other contractors, over 3,000 in total. Yeah.
I thank Honourable Jon very much for giving way, and I congratulate him on getting this important debate. And I do what he's saying empathises, rings a bell with me in terms of Solihull. Obviously, we just lost 1,000 jobs in terms of diesel engines. And does he agree with me that cleaner diesels are much less polluting than petrols, and that the potential targeting of these vehicles by some councils with so-called pollution charges is in itself wrong-headed?
Support precisely what the member said, and indeed I was going to mention the 1,000 losses in the future. I was going to cover some of the issues he made in my following remarks. The numbers of 3,000 on the Dagenham plant sit alongside 1,500 UK engineers dedicated to the development of Ford's latest and future clean powertrain technology. Total turnover stands at 1.75 billion. Dagenham is a strong export story for this country. 89% of these engines leave our shores. Customers include JLR, Peugeot, Citroën and Fiat. In 2014, Ford invested $490 million in the next generation of clean diesel engines, specifically designed to meet the new Euro 6 emissions. This will also satisfy TfL's ultra-low emission zone. All Dagenham diesel engines will comply with the next phase of Euro 6 emission standards. These will include real driving emissions requirements, not factory-based testing. Put simply, the plant is at the cutting edge of diesel technology and produces engines that comply with the most stringent emission standards on the planet. Yet today there is a crisis in confidence in diesel vehicles and diesel technology. Many argue today that we are literally witnessing the demonization of this technology. In the current climate, there is little or no separation between the old and new diesel technology, between dirty engines and state-of-the-art diesel technology. If this is allowed to continue, it will have disastrous consequences. Yesterday, it was widely reported that the number of cars built in UK factories in March fell by some 13%. The current debate, or rather panic, lacks both facts and nuance. The danger is this. It will lead to unfair criticism of the engines built in Dagenham. It will threaten many thousands of high-quality jobs in my constituency and in others across our economy and our country, and will undermine the managed transition to 2040 and a world beyond the combustion engine. So today I speak up on behalf of Dagenham diesel engine production. Over the last months I've been in talks with the company, the unions, the Mayor's office and other council leaders, and we all stand united in the need to make new arguments for modern diesel, to push back against some of the current hostility to this technology and to make the case for the Dagenham plant and the managed transition to 2040. This is not about defending the indefensible in terms of the older engines, which paradoxically the present debate might simply ensure stay on our roads for longer, but to argue that the most efficient technology for the future. So today I'm just asking for the government to join this new partnership to push back against the demonisation of diesel. In truth, Volkswagen hasn't done us many favours. Diesel appears a dirty word since it emerged that Volkswagen had cheated regulators and misled customers by using software to suppress nitrogen oxide emissions during testing. In 2015, VW admitted they had fitted defeat devices in some 11 million of its cars worldwide, with about 1.2 million of these being in the UK. It cost them £22.5 billion, but what worries me is the collateral damage now being played out across the whole sector. Today there's a real danger that Britain's auto industry is on a cliff edge with collapsing sales of diesel and the loss of thousands of manufacturing jobs and dealerships. Obviously, consumer confidence is vital and government has a key role to play in this. For example, in Dagenham, plans to recruit 150 new jobs in 2017-18 were shelved due to the fall in demand. Over the last few weeks, we've heard more bad news. Vauxhall revealing plans to slash UK dealerships. Nissan preparing to cut hundreds of jobs due to falling demand. As we heard, JLR cutting 1,000 jobs as it seeks to offset falling diesel sales. European diesel share continues to decline, now at 33% of sales compared to 50% in 2011. Sure.
I congratulate on bringing forward this debate, which is very relevant to me. In my constituency, we have a company called Delphi Diesel Systems, a very large company, which is we're going to lose 500 jobs in Sudbury. And they do point to precisely what it's talking about, forecast fall in demand in Europe because of these sorts of much tougher measures that are coming forward. And to a certain extent, I do accept some of that. My concern is that if that's going to happen, what we need to see is the strongest possible strategy from the government, much of which I think we will see, to support the new technology and ensure that that investment is into plants like his and plants like mine and all around the UK.
And that signals a cross-party agreement about some of the points I'm making today. The trouble is, in UK, Germany, France and Spain, the markets where this anti-diesel rhetoric is actually the highest, we see the declining fastest the amount of diesel consumption. And sales of diesel cars have slumped as regulators and politicians announce plans for bans, levies and additional taxes in many of our cities. In truth, we in Dagenham fear diesel has become a bit of a political football, I should add, however. In 2001, Gordon Brown introduced a new system of car tax aimed at protecting the environment, a sliding scale to make it cheaper for cars with lower CO2 emissions. It helped stimulate the dash for diesel after its introduction in 2001 and its extension in subsequent years. There are now some 12 million diesel cars on British roads, while back in 2000 there were only 3 million. In recent years, diesel has accounted for around half the new car market. In 2000, by comparison, only 1 in 7 new cars was a diesel model. Yet following a 2017 BBC report on the dangers of diesel, the Environment Secretary jumped into the debate to make political capital when he said this: "The dash for diesel was pursued under a Labour government. This is yet another example of a Conservative government having to clean up Labour's mess. We're taking action to end the sales of new diesel and petrol cars and vans by 2040. Political game plan should have no role given the challenges facing the sector today, as reflected in the comments across the chamber today." Since 2015 VW revelations, cities have taken the lead over national governments. Berlin banned the oldest, highest polluting diesel cars from its centre. Paris, Madrid, Mexico City and Athens have said they plan to ban diesel vehicles from city centres by 2025. Sadiq Khan ordered the replacement of the capital's current diesel bus fleet and enforced a £10 toxicity charge, or T-charge, on the highest polluting cars as of October. The measures are part of a wider plan to create an ultra-low emission zone in central London from April 2019. Now, I don't dispute this pushback against older diesel vehicles. This has to be the right way to proceed. But the danger is we throw the baby out with the bathwater and we fail to challenge the wholesale demonisation of this technology.
Sure. Thank you again for your time. General, just about older diesel, actually, it's very recent diesel. My own diesel, for instance, is 2013. And I found that it's a 70% fall in the value. And this actually will mean that more sensibly, I'll probably run that diesel now into the ground. And that means a more polluting car effectively stays on the roads.
Precisely the point I'm going to make in a couple of minutes, actually, but I totally agree with you in terms of the paradox is that we're creating incentives to retain older, dirtier diesel technology on our roads, resulting in greater harm to our economy, possibly our future consumers and British workforce. So given all of this, what do we actually know? And I think we should return to this. We know that overall CO2 emissions of a diesel car tend to be lower. We know that diesel fuel contains more energy per litre than petrol, and that diesel engines are often more efficient than petrol engines, especially in rural environments. We know that modern Euro 6 diesel cars are the cleanest in history. They capture 99% of particulates and emit 84% fewer NOx emissions than in 2000. So we know that new diesels don't compare to the older ones. We also know from data from the Society of Motor Manufacturers and Traders that average CO2 emissions from cars sold in 2017 were higher than in 2016, reversing a near 20-year decline. They blame this increase on the demonisation of diesel since 2015. This means we cannot take for granted the progress made in reducing CO2 emissions since 2000. We're heading in the wrong direction as diesel sales have fallen by 37% since last year. Mike Hawes, SMMT Chief Executive, criticised the autumn budget, which increased taxes on sales of new diesels. He commented that, concerned about these tax increases, people are, quote, holding off buying new diesel cars because of the confusion, and that means older, dirtier diesels are staying on the road. Precisely the point made by a colleague on the other side of the chamber. Nick Holden, Chief Executive of the testing company Emissions Analytics, agreed that rather than impose newer taxes on new cars, the oldest cars and dirtiest diesel cars should be targeted with taxes instead, rather than the newer vehicles. His company, Real World Driving Tests, has shown that some of the newest diesels produce less pollution overall than petrol vehicles. He commented this: the most efficient diesel engines continue to improve, while some of the worst remain on the market, meaning the confusion for consumers increases rather than diminishes. Diesel sales are falling as a result, and this may lead to cities and governments overcompensating and restricting diesels, more than is justified by our evidence. The danger is that motorists who bought genuinely clean diesels, together with the manufacturers who made them, suffer the consequences of the general confusion and loss of confidence. Overall, I know that the government recognises the need to act quickly to improve UK's air quality, but they must also accept that we cannot do this at the expense of increasing CO2 emissions. Surely, therefore, the most effective way to achieve both aims is by encouraging consumers to adopt new technologies or update to the cleanest specifications. Clearly, modern diesel has a role to play here, and with help we can get the old diesels off the road. For example, Ford's new for old scrap scheme enables drivers to trade in any passenger car or commercial vehicle registered before the 1st of January 2011. They guarantee to take every pre-2011 vehicle off the road permanently by scrapping them. So, by way of some concluding points, modern Euro 6 diesel cars are the cleanest in history. The latest generation of diesel engines have a crucial role to play in improving air quality and reducing CO2 emissions, particularly in the commercial vehicle market. London is facing a challenge in terms of its air quality, and it is here in London that we make the latest Euro 6 diesel engines just down the road in Dagenham. These engines comply with the world's toughest real driving emission standards. Recent correspondence with the Mayor of London has confirmed he gets this and has supported the modern case for Dagenham. Dagenham-built engines are powering the UK's best-selling and cleanest ever transit commercial vehicles and developing the next generation of commercial vehicles. So today I make the case for Dagenham modern diesel technology. We have to push back against the demonisation of diesel. As I say, the Mayor of London is responding positively. Today I ask for government support in making the case for Dagenham diesel. Today they've arguably been too quiet, thereby endangering the country's industrial performance and the lives of my constituents. This is about planning for the future. The combustion engine will not last forever. I want to help transition the Dagenham plant to embrace future technologies, but to do that we require stability today and in the near future, and that has to be based around the most efficient diesel technology ever produced. In terms of the future, Ford has announced a global investment of some $11 billion to produce 40 different types of electrified vehicle by 2022. We all need to secure Dagenham's future by transitioning into these new technologies, a future beyond both petrol and diesel. So to do that, we need to resist the wholesale demonisation of the technologies and make the case for modern diesel. To put this simply, recently we've made significant progress in reducing CO2 emissions. The danger is that in the current climate we panic, hit the rewind button, ignore the facts, harm our economic base and undermine a successful transition to the technologies of the future. Dagenham has as much to play in our industrial future as it has in our past. Government has a role to help secure that future. I ask for your help today. Thank you.
Minister Parry.